So now that we looked at methods and some types of observations, let's kind of talk about the purpose. Even though you even shared, right? It's looking at children's developmental stages, it's how to set up an environment, it's being intentional on what that environment looks like, but then also being intentional on the direction or activities you have for children. So, is there a difference between just watching children and observing children? Well, definitely. If I'm outside and I'm still kind of doing a little bit of both, right? Even if I'm just watching children, I'm still observing their behaviors. I'm looking at, how is the environment conducive to their play? Does it allow them the mobility they need? Is it conducive to children who have disabilities or have a learning disability, right? It could be a physical disability. It could be a learning disability, or if they have an impairment. How is that environment? I'm looking at all of those things. When do I want to observe children? I like to do observations when I actually was in program. Is I like to come in the beginning of the year just to watch children play. It's wonderful to read, teachers' previous notes, but also you get a really good understanding of children because sometimes the environment is new, the children are new, the teachers are new, giving them an opportunity to acclimate to the environment, but also watching how are they engaging in the things that you have set up for them. So let's take a look at a video. And hold on one second. So let's take a look real quick at this video. Let me exit back out. Hold on a second. All right, so here we go.
Oh, like a dinosaur, Patrick? Like a dinosaur?
All right, sorry about that. Somebody knocked at the door. This is what happens when you do video. So look at this observation video. So there's a couple things, right? We can see children playing. One is engaging with the teacher. You might be looking at facial expressions, right? Because these look like infants and toddlers, or like toddlers. So vocabulary, they might not be communicating as much verbally as older children would be, but also look at their nonverbal communication. I might be looking at fine motor skills, gross motor skills.
Let's draw. Let's make a flower.
What the instructor, how they're facilitating the activity. Listening to the conversations that are happening in the back. And observing what the children are doing. Are there some children doing the same thing, different things? And how are the children interacting with each other? So these definitely might be some things that you might take a look at when you're doing some observations. And so my whole purpose right here, is my purpose looking at the children? Is my purpose looking at the teacher? Is my purpose looking at the environment? So before you do an observation, I'm gonna pause. What's really helpful is being able to identify what is it that you want to be able to look at. All right. And using an observation tool so that, whether it's, some programs actually have a tool, some people have anecdotal notes, writing down those notes. When are you observing, at what time of day? What are some of those things that you want to look at? Also developing goals and objectives. And we're really going to dive into this later, but you're going to work on developing goals and objectives based on an observation and measurable goals and objectives. Talk about. So what is some of that preparation in regards to doing that observation? Let me just spend a couple minutes on that. If you can and you're able to, what is some of that background information of the child, right? And what is the context of the learning environment? So one, you want to identify, what is my purpose of doing this observation? Is it to look at learning styles? Is it to look at environment? What is it? Is it to look at teacher-child interactions? Is it to look at child interactions? What is my whole purpose? And then here's some really helpful things when you're gathering information. Being also, we must really be understanding and aware of our own biases, right? Trying not to judge classrooms. Like, for instance, I do not prefer all of the colors, right? They got a lot of colors going on here. Is that my intention of my observation? No, it is a preference. I can definitely show data that shows, why having neutral colors on a rug is better. But at the same time, it's a preference, and that's not what I'm there for, right? So being able to identify some things that I feel are crucial, but things that I also have to identify as my own biases or my own preferences. Interpreting the data. We are going to spend a lot of time on that, right? You're going to do some anecdotal notes, you're going to do some summaries, you're going to look at some tools, you're going to be able to interpret and develop goals and objectives. So the rest of this is very self-explanatory and looking at background information. I want you to be able to do that. Just go through and just kind of take a look at the next couple of slides in regards to what do those entail. So one thing that sometimes observers, we get so caught up in the day-to-day of the observation, but sometimes we don't think about some of those things logistically that we need to look at, right? If I'm doing observations during the time of day, I'm on the floor and I'm teaching children, or I have an opportunity, right, or I'm doing an activity, I used to have sticky notes in my pockets so that I could then write down something quick, especially if I wanted to capture that. If you have access to cameras or things in the classroom, taking a quick photo and just jotting down a few notes on why I took the photo and what the purpose of the photo is for. Also asking parent volunteers sometimes to come in and do tapings for you or take pictures of children's work or activities that you're doing. So that better helps you also reflect maybe on my teaching style, but then also the environment and how the children are interacting. That is it. So I'm going to post this and I will see you guys next module.